I would just say that like the purpose is not video, the purpose is story.
Mm.
And video is an amazing way of showing the power of your impact and the power of a story. And so I just encourage people to focus on story and
Yeah.
then use video as a tool.
Hello, and welcome to Unlocked, a podcast about growing your business through the power of video. My name is Dan West. I'm the owner and creative director at Blue Key. And today I'm joined with Jean-Carlos Diaz, the senior marketing manager at Wallin Education Partners here in the Twin Cities. So welcome, Jean-Carlos.
Excited to be here.
Yeah, thanks for being on the show. And Jean-Carlos, tell me a little bit about yourself and your background. Give us a quick intro, the quick, few minute intro on yourself.
Absolutely. So my name is Jean Carlos. I am the senior marketing manager at Wallin Education Partners. I was also a Wallin scholar. Wallin provides scholarships to high potential low income students in the Twin Cities. And I've been with them for the last 3.5 years, developing their brand, our storytelling, both through things like video, social media, communications, website. And it's just been a joy to not only be a Wallin scholar, but to help our scholarship program grow.
That's awesome. And were you the first marketing person at Wallin?
Yeah. We are a growing nonprofit, and I was the first marketing associate and then marketing manager, and now leading the marketing efforts at Wallin.
That's awesome. And tell me, you are the type of person who it seems like you really love story and you understand story. So how do you go about telling stories at Wallin? And tell me a little bit about, I guess, your view on storytelling.
Absolutely. I think when I arrived, a lot of nonprofit, academic, and educational settings, they have a way of telling stories that sometimes is very informational. And one of the things that we wanted our stories to be is irresistible. We wanted people to hear the stories of our scholars, of the work that we do in the community, and say, "Wow, I have to be a part of that." I think sometimes storytelling that nonprofits do, because it's like the last thing on their list. They do so much great work, but they don't get to that good marketing. What it ends up being is that the story is dry, the story is boring, the story is lacking life. And so when I joined Wallin, I wanted to make sure that the way that we told the story of our scholars was next level. I wanted to make sure that we realized that when someone gives us their story, it's something sacred. It's something beautiful, and it's something that we have to treat with honor. And so when I got there, I got to figure out, how do we tell the story of students, first generation scholars? How do we tell the story of alumni who went through the program? We serve a community that has a 91% graduation rate in comparison to 60% of scholars nationally, and in comparison to sometimes as low as 11% of students that are first generation, low income, or students of color. And so we were trying to figure out, how do we tell the story in a way that not only honors them, but attracts people to be a part of our mission.
Wow, cool. And what is the Wallin story? I mean, what is that story of scholars?
Yeah, for sure. So for us, when we think about our story, I always think that the main character isn't Wallin. The main character isn't donors or partners. The main character is scholars, and putting them at the center of the story. And that these scholars are passionate. They are powerful, right? They have agency. I think a lot of times in nonprofit world, sometimes we can talk about the people we serve in ways that don't honor them, in ways where they are victims, in ways where they are in need of help, in need of rescue. I think sometimes white saviorism, this idea that there are these students that desperately need our help, and that we're somehow, that donors or partners are the hero of the story.
Mm-hmm.
For us, we want to make sure that the hero of our story is always scholars, the people that we serve. And when we recognize that power and that potential, we can then begin to tell a story that everyone in the community wants to be a part of. We think about the problem as systems that get in the way, systems that surround us and stop scholars from rising. And whether that be economic scarcity, whether that be racial disparities, whether that be social disconnection that so many students face when they go to a secondary institution, whatever that is that gets in the way, prevents people from living into that potential that they have, living into that dream, that hope, that aspiration that they hold so dear. And we think about the support as a solution, right? Support that addresses students' holistic needs, right? The both individual challenges that they face as well as the systemic challenges that they face. And we think about Wallin Education Partners as a guide, as a partner with scholars on their journey to success. And we believe that the future rises and falls with scholars. So if scholars do well, we all do well. But if scholars can't, if scholars aren't able, if scholars don't have access, if students don't get the support that they need, we also all lose. And so we've tried to center all of our storytelling around a simple idea that when our scholars rise, we all do. And for us, one of the greatest resources I've found has been the Story Brand by Donald
Mm-hmm.
Miller. Has been a really great tool to help us create a story that is compelling and that centers scholars.
Yeah, that's great. I was wondering if that influenced you at all because you talk very much in the way that that book is about, not making yourself the hero, but you make whoever your customer is or the person you're serving the hero. So
Yeah,
that
it's excellent. I think if anyone is doing marketing in whether business or nonprofit setting, I think that resource, the Story Brand by Donald Miller, is very good.
yeah, we,
Yeah.
we should be sponsored by Donald Miller after this
Absolutely,
episode.
absolutely. Thank you, Donald.
But so tell me a little bit about, I guess one thing before we move on, but I really love how you were able to boil your message down to that one statement, which I feel
Yeah,
that's the hardest part, right? Of how do you come up with a single phrase or
yeah,
one or two sentences that really gets to the heart of what an organization is doing, what a business is doing that communicates powerfully. Like when our scholars rise, we all do. Or when
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
sorry if I butchered that,
No,
but
no.
when
Mhm.
our scholars rise, we all do is simple, but it gets to the essence. And I think that is the art of marketing, the art of storytelling is finding the simplicity or like the most not the most simple phrase and compressing a
Yeah.
very complex thing into a very understandable and attainable phrase. So
Yeah, no, I think for me, as someone who sometimes speaks or does communication, a one point is really powerful. And so for me, my process for a one point is kind of a two-step thing. The first step is, what do I want to say? And it doesn't sound elegant, right? So just writing down a lot of different things. I think when we came up with that thesis, that one point for us, we wrote down many things, many things. And we eventually got to this idea of collective liberation, this idea that somehow by supporting a scholar, we were also supporting a community, that somehow by investing in a student, we were investing in society. But that's kind of raw, and it's hard to put that on a billboard. And so after you get the first step of what do you want to say without trying to make it sound good, you just write down what you want to say. Then the second step is how do we make that substance sound beautiful, simple? And then you can workshop with it. I remember talking to a lot of creative friends about it, trying different things out, and eventually something clicks. But I think by keeping it two steps, where one, what do I want to say? And then two, how do I say it in the most beautiful way? That prevented me from going crazy.
your 30th anniversary is coming up at
Yeah,
Wallin, and now you're really trying to share that message
yeah,
in a compelling way at the scale. And one of those ways that you're doing it is video.
yeah.
So tell me how did you decide that video was going to be a main component of this event and how you told the Wallin story? There's so many other ways that you could tell the story, but what about video for you was compelling enough to invest in it?
Yeah. For us, as we're celebrating 30 years, the challenge before us was how do we honor those 30 years? How do we honor the scholars, the alumni, the staff, the donors, the partners? And we thought that video would be one of the most powerful and simple ways to do that. Because how do you sneak 30 years into 5 minutes? It's really hard. But that feeling has to be cinematic. That feeling of impact of serving a community for 30 years, for supporting scholars as Wallin has for 3 decades. it has to be done through storytelling. Like I don't I think for us, a website wouldn't do it justice, right? Like a podcast, a picture, like none of those things could truly capture that breadth of story that we wanted to tell without using video. And we want to make sure that as we celebrate our 30 years, that we honor those stories. People who have graduated in 1993, 1996, 2001, 2008, 2012, 2015, 2018, 2022, right? So like we got to see scholars in this video that graduated high school very, very recently, and people who graduated high school in the 90s before I was born. And so I think that we knew that to do the scope of what we wanted to do, the video was the only solution.
Hmm. And how, at a high level, how have you been approaching concepting for the video? You strike me as a person with a lot of ideas, and how did you go about taking all these different ideas and narrowing in on the approach?
Yeah, well, I think conceptually we wrote down a lot of ideas. We had a lot of different, two sentences. What if we did this? What if we did that? I think the biggest question for us was who was going to be the focus, right?
Mm.
There were kind of three big options. The first is, we can make the focus our organization, and we could we could have leaders from our organization, directors, presidents, managers speak, advisors. But as we looked at that approach, we realized that we actually didn't want to make this about us. We wanted to make this about scholars. The other approach was we wanted to see if we could get, people, lots of different partners, high school, donors, college, just see all the partners. But as we thought more and more about it, if we were going to be celebrating 30 years, we had stories of people graduating a year ago, 2 years ago, 4 years ago, but we didn't have stories of people graduating in 96, in 93. And so for us, it became more and more clear as we did a lot of concepts that while partners and the organization is a part of the story, really, really wanted to focus in on students and their journeys.
Mm. And I think that goes back to what you talked about as you were developing the storytelling for Wallin,
Yeah.
just in general, about focusing on the scholar and making them the hero.
Yeah.
And I love the approach that we took on this video and we're
Yeah.
taking on it of that, because I think so many times it's easy for nonprofits or other organizations to focus on themselves. Like, here are the great things we're doing. Let's hear from leadership. These are the different stuff. But to be able to hear from the actual people,
Yeah.
being impacted and hear their story, there's so much power in that. So I just hearing all the stories that we've captured, I am really excited
Yeah.
to piece it all together,
Yeah.
and I won't be, but our amazing team will be piecing it
Yeah.
together and
Yeah.
trying to bring their stories
Yeah.
to life and portray that in such a great way. So,
For sure.
how did you decide on like the stories to tell? Because
Yeah.
during this process, I mean, you
Oh,
reached
yeah.
out to you had over 50 or maybe
Yeah.
you reached out to maybe hundreds of
Yeah.
people and then got tons of responses. So how did you go about that whole selection process of, out of the many stories you got, choosing the right ones?
Yeah. So over 30 years, we've served 6,000 different scholars, and we have about 2,000 of their emails. So we sent out an email to 2,000 alumni, people who have graduated and gone through our program. And within 24 hours, we had over 50 people say, I would love to help. I would love to help.
Wow.
And what was great is that in the form that they filled out, we learned a little bit about their job, their work, the year that they graduated high school. And from there, we were able to, find 6 to 8 different people that we really wanted to hear more from. What was also exciting is that there were people that we wanted to hear more from who, worked as rocket scientists, worked as at Harvard Medical School, worked at teaching in New York, worked at lots of different careers that were really exciting. That literally they weren't in the state, so we had to involve them and include them in different ways. And then we're able to find 6 to 8 people that really had a powerful story, and we could center in on and celebrate.
You had a lot of conversations with people, right? In
Yeah.
terms of trying to understand that and what was important to, tell me a little bit about like choosing the swath because you kind
Yeah.
of pulled people from different time, I guess, when they graduated, right?
Right. Yeah, I think we wanted to be able to reflect the 30 years. So, someone from 93 and someone from 2020, right? So we wanted to have that, but then also we also wanted to get to know people. Oh, it's really important for us as an organization to know our alumni and their stories, and we try to involve people as best as we can. So one of the ways for the people that were out of state or the people who couldn't be a part of the video is we asked people to share their graduation photos. So we were able to get tons of graduation photos from the 90s, from the 2000s, and make sure that everyone can celebrate the 30 years with us.
Yeah, that's I love how you were able to work in so many
Yeah.
people that maybe weren't able to be a part of the filming, but will at least be able to incorporate somehow in the visuals.
Yeah.
And also, maybe it's sometimes it's overlooked in terms of tapping into that network of a lot of nonprofits have a big database of either people they've served or people that have interacted, and sending out a simple email, you know, you'd
Yeah,
be surprised at how much support that you'd get from
for
the
sure.
people that you've impacted. So,
Yeah.
what are you know going through this process? And I know we still have to edit the video now, and
Yeah.
that's a whole nother
Yeah.
thing. But has there been anything that you've learned along the way, or maybe not even related to this video project, but you've created quite a few videos at Wallin. And so, have there been any good tips that you have walked away with, or as you've developed stories, specifically video stories?
Yeah, I think video is a great um, a great way to capture an emotion. I think that sometimes, whether you think about a blog post or you think about a website or an article, yeah, you can capture the chronology of a story. But I think for me, what I want to use video for is to capture an emotional arc. And I think for us, as we're celebrating 30 years, we want to try to capture this experience of someone getting a scholarship across decades and what that support meant to them and what that support does to our community. We got to see people who are receiving that support right now, but we also got to see people who received that support, and as a result, their future, their career, their family, and therefore our community was impacted. So for me, I really want to try to capture emotion, and I think video does that better than most mediums. And as I've done video this past year, like we did a surprise video where we surprised students as they received their scholarship and they found out, they thought that they were uh, in a video for their high school senior class, but in reality, they were about to receive $16,000. And for us, it was about that emotion. We didn't explain what the scholarship was. We didn't explain what our organization does. We didn't explain much, but we captured the emotion of that support. And so I would say that for anyone thinking about using video, to focus on emotion. What emotional story, what emotional arc, what emotional pull are we trying to show that we couldn't show in a picture, that we couldn't show in an article?
And to that video and some of the past videos, I mean, you have a video intern on staff,
Yeah.
and then you have some video skills as well.
Yeah.
I think maybe you can speak to this point, but a lot of nonprofit organizations, they see video and they think, oh, this is a super big investment that is maybe hard to put the money behind. We might not have all the funding, but you guys have been able to come up with ways, whether it be you learning or bring in an intern or
Yeah.
other ways to create really impactful video that tells great story without necessarily having to. I mean, now you're investing in it, but
Yeah.
making
Yeah.
do on a more, I don't know, shoestring budget or on a smaller scale, but
Yeah.
still really impactful. So tell me a
Yeah.
little bit about that in terms of like what is possible with just the staff on hand or the
Yeah.
people that you have. Like, is it possible to still tell really good videos if you don't necessarily have the super professional level stuff?
Oh yeah, for sure. I think you're gonna need creative people, and that doesn't necessarily mean a videographer. But if you have creative people on staff, there are so many great things that you could do with an iPhone. There's so many great things that you could do with iMovie, And I think one of the things we've experimented with has been requesting content from our scholars and alumni. So we'll ask alumni, hey, would you film a 2-minute video with us? Would you uh, submit it online, drop it in a Dropbox folder, right? And so we've been able to have anything from iPhone videos submitted to us that we use for our social media or for our email, all the way up to, right, investing into creating a video that we'll be using for a year or two, right? Like not only for an event, but also as a way of telling our story to donors, partners, and to our community for some time. So I would just say that like the purpose is not video, the purpose is story.
Mm.
And video is an amazing way of showing the power of your impact and the power of a story. And so I would say that if you have some creative people, try stuff, especially stuff that you can decide whether you use it later, right? But just get your iPhone, get that camera, edit something, and you'll be surprised. People actually these days want something that's authentic, right?
Yeah.
So sometimes an iPhone video can be more powerful because it's more authentic, it's more real.
Right.
So I just encourage people to focus on story
Yeah.
and then use video as a tool.
Perfect. I love that. I love that. All right. So your gala is coming up soon. Tell us a little bit about how can people be a part of it? How can people support Wallin? And how can they be a part of the 30th anniversary?
Absolutely. So we are going to be celebrating our 30 years on Friday, October 14th at 6 at the International Market Square. Beautiful location. And it's going to be an opportunity for our community that cares about equity, cares about education, cares about seeing the next generation have all the support that they need. Come together and celebrate scholars and alumni, and celebrate what we can do in our community together.
Awesome. Well, I'm excited to be there for it. I hope
Yes.
other people, if you're able to go, check it out. But John Carlos, I really appreciate you coming on and
Yeah.
talking a little bit more about story and how you approach it. And
Yep.
I'm excited to see how this video that we're working on right now unfolds. So,
Absolutely.
I guess one last thing is shout out if you don't follow us on Blue Key Media to follow us on Instagram or LinkedIn or Facebook. And where can people follow Wallin Partners?
Yeah. Our handle is @Wallin Partners. And if anyone's interested in our event, they can go to wallinpartners.org.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much, John Carlos, for coming on.
Absolutely.
And thank you guys for listening.